You come here expecting secrets, little tricks, some magic formula that will let you absorb a language or anything without effort, without pain, without the tedious grind of doing the work. That is what you want, isn't it? You think there is some shortcut. And the tragedy is that you have been told there are shortcuts. Apps that promise you fluency in 3 months. Hacks that promise you to unlock your hidden memory potential. Cute influencers chirping about how they learn the Japanese by listening to anime song in the shower. Pathetic. And you lap it up. Because you are lazy. Because you are desperate. Because you are terrified of the obvious truth. Learning is effort. And effort is what you avoid at all costs. My upcoming Compass to Growth program won't erase that reality. But it will at least give you the structure to face it instead of running away. And if you are watching this after its release, the link is waiting. Click it. Or prove once again that you cannot follow even the simplest instruction. Let's be precise. Science have studied this. They have charted the processes of the brain. They have explained in every possible way that the brain learns by repeated exposure, by meaningful engagement, by active recall, by the painful cycle of forgetting and remembering again. This is not new information. Hermann Ebbinghaus was already showing the forgetting curve in the 19th century. He demonstrated how memory decays unless it's reinforced. People have written libraries of this, yet you still behave as if learning was some mystery, some magical property of the talented. Talent is the excuse of the weak. Talent is the story you tell yourself so that your laziness looks like fate. Pay attention. Your brain is not a sponge waiting to be soaked in knowledge. Your brain is a suspicious accountant who throws away every scrap of data it doesn't think it's vital. That is why you cannot remember the vocabulary you read once. That is why you cannot recall the formula you copied from the board last week. The brain deletes ruthlessly unless you convince it that the information matters. And how do you convince it? You struggle, you repeat, you return again and again to what you want to keep. Active recall, not passive recognition. When you test yourself, actually force your brain to drag information out of the void. That is when memory strengthens. That is how the neural traces deepen. But you don't want to test yourself, do you? Testing feels uncomfortable. It feels like failure. And yes, that is exactly why you avoid it, though failure is the very thing you will later need if you ever hope to grow. And then you whine, but I studied for hours. Really? You sat there, eyes moving across the page, mind drifting, fingers twitching towards your phone. That isn't study. That is performance. You are performing for yourself, pretending to work, while your brain laughs and discards every useless seconds. Focus is the rarest skill. And of course you don't have it, because focus requires discipline, and discipline requires the word you hate the most. No. No to distractions. No to comfort. No to the endless trivial pleasures that erode your capacity to do anything meaningful. You want learning without saying no. You want growth without sacrifice. You want the result without the process. You are a child. Let me tell you what actual research has shown. Distributed practice, spacing your study over time, is vastly more effective than cramming. Everyone knows this, and yet you still cram, because you procrastinate, because you live in permanent denial. You think a frantic night before the exam will compensate for weeks of negligence. It doesn't. It never will. Sleep, critical for memory consolidation, and yet you cut it short. You destroy the fragile traces your brain was trying to build. Exercise, proven to increase cognitive performance. But of course, you sit slumped in your chair, body decaying, wondering why your mind feels like sludge. Nutrition, environment, deliberate practice, all documented, all clear. Yet, you behave as the law of the biology were optional, as if your personal weakness exempted you from reality. And there is the myth of passive learning. You put on a podcast in a language you don't understand, let it babble in the background, and you dare to imagine that this counts as study. Do you also think you will become a pianist by sitting in a room where Chopin is playing? You will learn nothing that way. Exposure without attention is noise. Always have been, always will be. If you want to learn, you must engage consciously, painfully, actively. Repetition with awareness. Repetition with effort. Otherwise, you are just decorating your failure with background music. But you love illusions. You love the illusion of progress. That's why you cling to apps that congratulate you with little stars and streak counts. You adore the dopamine trickle that tells you you've achieved something. You haven't. You have pressed buttons. You fed a machine your attention, and it has given you a digital cookie. That is not learning. That is addiction disguised as productivity. The truth is brutal. Learning feels like work. It feels slow. It feels boring. And if it doesn't feel that way, you are not doing it properly. Now, let's speak of the childish obsession with motivation. You sit around waiting to be motivated. How quaint. How tragic. Do you think soldiers wait for motivation before they train? Do you think surgeons wait for motivation before they cut? Motivation is the myth for the undisciplined. Professionals act whether they feel like it or not. Discipline is action in the absence of motivation. Habit is what carries you when emotion fails. And it always fails. You will not feel like studying most of the time. Too bad. You do it anyway. And if you think glancing at something once is enough, you're delusional. Science is clear. You need to encounter the same material at least 7 times before it truly sticks. 7, not once, not twice. So stop whining about repetition. It's the only reason your brain learns anything at all. And here is the part your lazy brain doesn't want to hear at all. Not all repetitions are equal. Anything with rhythm, with sound, with a touch of poetry sticks deeper. That's why children's rhymes haunt you for life, long after you've forgotten equations or dates. Symbolic, image-based language drills itself into your memory because it speaks to the part of you that is too primitive to argue. And don't get sentimental. I'm not telling you to become a poet. I am telling you that structured, patterned language is a weapon. And if you ignore it, you are throwing away one of the most powerful tools for learning, because rhythm, sound, imagery slip past your defenses and sink deeper. But do not mistake this for the same kind of effort you use when grinding through word lists or grammar charts. Those require a sharp, wakeful state of mind, focused, deliberate, almost mechanical. This other mood, the poetic, is different. It is receptive, symbolic, associative, 2 states, 2 tools, both required. And science backs this up. The right hemisphere of your brain thrives on imagery, rhythm, and concrete sensory impressions. It absorbs simple, vivid sentences. It does not handle abstract grammar well, but it is unmatched at storing meaningful, picture-rich units of language. The left hemisphere, on the other hand, is responsible for grasping grammatical structures and rules. When both hemispheres are engaged together, visual, emotional input for the right, structured analysis for the left, learning becomes far more effective. The most powerful methods deliberately combine these strengths, instead of forcing one side to carry the entire burden. If you only indulge in the pretty one, you will stay soft. If you only grind the dry one, you will burn out. You need both. And when you are an adult, everything must be broken down clearly. Grammar has to be chunked, segmented, never dumped on you in one shapeless mess. Adults do not absorb like children. They need structure, separation, pauses. Otherwise, what sticks is not knowledge, but confusion. And if you need more than my score to keep you moving, my upcoming program, The Compass to Growth, came to life to put ruthless structure behind the goals. If you're watching this after release, the link is in the description. Click it. Because for success, you don't need to establish goals. You need to build systems. And here is another scientific truth. Emotions influence memory. You remember what shocks you, what makes you laugh, what frightens you. Dry list of words vanish. Vivid stories stay. That is why methods using imagery, narrative, and association are so effective. You could be using your brain's natural preference for images and stories, but instead, you numb it with empty routines. You are not even lazy in an efficient way. You are lazy in the worst way possible. You think multitasking is real. Another delusion. Neuroscience has shown again and again that what you call multitasking is just frantic task switching, leaving you slower, less accurate, and more exhausted. And yet, you insist studying with your phone buzzing, music blaring, notifications flashing. You are sabotaging yourself. You are like a runner, tying weights on your own legs, then whining about how heavy they feel. Understand this. Learning is not entertainment. Learning is not indulgence. Learning is survival. The brain was designed to adapt, to extract patterns, to simulate possibilities. It was not designed to memorize your vocabulary list. So, you must trick it. You must make the material vivid, relevant, connected to your goals, connected to real use. That is why speaking with others is so powerful. That is why immediate application works, because the brain hoards what matters and discards what doesn't. And unless you force it to believe that this grammar, this formula, this concept is essential, it will delete it. Then you will sit there, whining that you just don't have what it takes. Listen carefully. There are no hacks. There is no magic. There is repetition. There is effort. There is the slow accumulation of the fragments until one day they become a whole. That is how children learn: endless trial, endless correction, endless repetition. And you resent repetition. You want novelty. You want stimulation. You want to be entertained. You want the teacher to amuse you, to sing and dance, to trick you into learning without you noticing. Pathetic. Grow up. If you are not willing to repeat until you're sick of it, you are not willing to learn. And when you fail, as you will, you must understand what failure means. It is not a verdict. It is a feedback. Every wrong answer, every mistake, every blank memory is information, but you cannot stand to look at your own ignorance. You hide from tests. You avoid correction. You prefer the warm illusion of "I kind of know it" to the cold clarity of "I don't." This is why you stay mediocre. The excellent expose themselves constantly to failure, because failure is the map. And you crumple at the first sign of difficulty. You tell yourself stories about not being a language person. There is no such thing. There is only a disciplined person and a weak one. Guess which you are. So, what must you do? You must accept the boredom, the discomfort, the repetition, that discipline. You must stop worshipping motivation. Stop waiting for energy. Stop chasing hacks. You must study when you are tired, when you are bored, when you despise the very material in front of you. That is how progress is made. Not in bursts of inspiration, but in the steady grind of practice. And you must do it deliberately, focusing on the hard parts, not the easy ones. If you only repeat what you already know, you are just stroking your ego. If you attack what you cannot do, you are building strength. Most of you prefer the ego massage. That is why most of you remain weak. My upcoming program, The Compass to Growth, exists to put real structure behind your goals, so you stop circling in weakness and start moving forward with force. And if you're watching this after release, the link is already in the description. Click it and step forward. Or don't, and prove me right about your weakness. Science confirms what common sense already knew. Spaced repetition, active recall, interleaving practice, sleep, exercise, focus, feedback. None of this is mysterious. All of it is established. But none of it matters if you are too weak to face discomfort, because that is the true barrier. Not intelligence, not age, not talent. Cowardice. You are too fragile to sit with your own ignorance, too addicted to comfort, to embrace effort, too vain to tolerate correction. And so you stay ignorant while blaming fate, teachers, society, anyone but yourself. Here is the reality. The methods work if you work. The science helps if you help yourself. But if you do nothing, you get nothing. And perhaps that is what you deserve. Because in the end, learning is ruthless. It rewards those who return again and again to the struggle, who sacrifice their comfort, who endure the endless cycle of failure and correction. And it discards the rest. You may not like it, but it is the truth. And the truth does not care about your feelings. So stop whining. Stop searching for secrets. Stop pretending that you are special, that your case is different, that somehow the iron laws of learning do not apply to you. They do. They always will. And if you will not obey them, then you will remain what you are now. Ignorant, incompetent, and endlessly surprised at your own failure. Enough! Stop circling in weakness. If you want to break out, the Compass to Growth is waiting. Click the link, join, and prove you are not just another failure.